My name is Welch, and welcome to the Then and Now Blading podcast. My guest today is Luke Bender, and Luke is pretty much the godfather of the Denver rollerblading scene. He grew up skating there with his brother Adam. He's the face behind the Colorado road trip, the Mile High battle. He's kept those alive for a long time. So, Luke, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Yan.
It's great to see you. It's been a while. I want to remind everyone, if they enjoy this episode, to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Hit that bell icon to be notified of all new uploads. And you can follow me on social media. There's a link in the description below. So, Luke, let's get into it. What's your origin story? How did you start skating? How did you get into it?
Origin. Well, I think technically it would be my older brother directly, and basically a bunch of his friends stumbled upon, I think it was Dare to Air, and we'd all been skating, doing roller hockey, doing jumps off of things, but once we saw that, and it just basically took off. And I think Adam was a few months ahead of me and for those who don't know, I have a twin brother, and grew up, started around aggressively 8, 9 years old. So, it's been pretty much 30 years of the aggressive inline rollerblading.
So your twin brother, his name's Seth.
Yep.
And did he blade too? Was it all three of you or just you and Adam?
In the beginning, he did rollerblade, and we played hockey together on the same roller hockey team. And I think it was probably 7th or maybe 6th grade. 6th grade or something. He ended up falling and breaking his arm and ended up with a giant plate and 6 screws in his arm, and basically was told that moving forward, if he were to fall and hurt himself like that again, he would be losing his arm. So that was.
Oh, wow. That's a pretty serious injury.
Yeah.
And how much older is Adam than you?
3 years.
3 years. So Adam was the first bender I heard of back in the day. Mm-hmm. A lot of people know Adam from his photo in Daily Bread where he did the naked with a Mizu or sweat stance on a handicap rail in San Diego.
Yeah, there was some amazing moments of nudity, which is still funny how many people confuse us for being the same person. And it's like, yep, I don't skate naked. That was a glorious time in Adam's career.
And did Adam skate naked like a lot, or was it just that one-off that was featured in a magazine and everyone had a lasting impression?
No, that was definitely not a one-off. There were many of occasions, and I would say it started in, I don't know, high school sometime. And after that it was, I still don't understand why, but it was, a thing for quite a while. I think it was an eye for an eye. They ended up skating up in Minneapolis, and like full session on a down rail naked. So it wasn't a one-off.
So there's several rollerbladers who enjoy being naked. A lot of them go on the Colorado road trip. You've got your brother. You've got Carson Starnes and his brother. You've got Rob Zabranik. Who have you seen naked the most out of all those people?
Definitely my brother, but then probably Rob. And, it's you get used to it. It's nothing too surprising. You just keep on going, like nothing's happening, nothing's different.
And with your brother, how long did he skate for before he quit? Because he's been like out of it for quite a while, right?
Yeah, he's been, he still has skates and can, throw down a sole on my ramp any day. I guess more appropriately a top sole. But I would say after going and working for Google up in Santa Cruz, he started, shifting his gears more towards surfing. And then, I think there was a lack of a scene up there, so he, pretty much fell off there. And I think he met up with Rob G a few times and hit the skate park. But other than that, it's been, I'd say 6 years, 7 years, something like that.
Okay, so it's actually not as long as I thought. I mean, I did see him at the Colorado road trip. Was like 4 years ago when he had that crazy Sprinter SUV camper van that was too low to the ground to make it to any of the campsites.
Got shut down because of his runners.
Yeah.
And maybe it's been a little more than that, but yeah, I think
that was hilarious.
Yeah.
And who was better, you or Adam?
It depends on the time. I think, back then he was amazing, way better than I was. And, watching what he produced for In the Nines was like, one of the better sections, I would say, in that video. And, No Name, I think he was 17 or 18 when that came out. So, or maybe 16. And that was, definitely better than I would ever be at that point, relatively so.
And In the Nines was made by Dave Temple, or who made that video?
Correct.
And that was
Yep.
out of Kansas City. And back then, the Kansas City scene and the Denver scene were pretty close, right? I mean,
Yep.
like
Oh,
Jeremy Rockwell and Jeremy,
Morris,
yeah.
Yuri, Brandon Mateer, Joseph Scholl, E-Rock, and, AJ, and, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was the first time I met any of those guys. I guess the connection there is Jeremy Morris. And he used to live out here and skated, the same, I think he was a few years older than Adam, but same high school. And yeah, we still actually keep in touch. And I lived there, was it 2006 to 2008? So there's still a strong bond there, and still some of the best skaters out there as well.
Yeah, that's rad. Because those guys are all super nice and
Oh yeah,
super cool and really good at skating. And they had a
stylish,
pretty good,
creative.
a lot of good skaters for, Denver is a lot different than Kansas City, at least in my experience. Like Denver is almost like a big skate park. you know, Kansas City's got a lot of stuff, but
Yeah.
like those, it's a pretty cool scenes there. And how far is Kansas City from Denver?
To KC, like proper, is about 9 hours.
Is there any other cities that you guys had a close relationship with?
Salt Lake, Albuquerque, and then I'd say there was a pretty good connection to the Wyoming crew. And I think most of them were in Casper, but there was, basically the neighboring states that were all centrally located on one highway, so it was nice.
That's what was cool about the first Colorado road trip I went on is I met a lot of skaters from states like Wyoming and Montana and stuff that I'd never met skaters from any of those places before Colorado road trip. So I thought that was pretty cool. And same when we went to the Northwest Shred Tour when it was in Montana.
Yep.
I was able to meet a lot of skaters from places I'd never met before. Like there was those guys from Fort McMurray in Canada and like all sorts of random people.
Yeah, and that's what's the best about all those events. It brings people from all over the world. So,
when you started skating, who was in your original crew, and do any of them still skate?
um, I would say original crew, like local, mostly not. Most of the kids I was skating with were once again 3 years older than me. But there was Mac McKay, who's since passed, one of my best friends growing up. But I don't even know the Hall family, Kyle and Nick. You got Michael or what Mike Sawinski. There was, I don't know, for everything considering when rollerblading was coming up at that time, there were very few people that stuck around with it long enough to be like in the crew in a way, but Alex, Boyd, the whole Sam Para crew. There's a bunch of like older guys who still kick it a little bit. Let's see. But I mean, Sayer was, someone that we skated with quite a bit, I'd say a few years into the beginnings, but he still rips and, just, started that new company with Tori, the new company.
Yeah, it's really rad. I have one of his shirts.
I've got something around here somewhere.
And he's in New Mexico now.
Yep, he's in Taos.
Have you met up with him at all out there?
No, we tried actually. Me and my girlfriend were just on a trip and passed by.
Sick.
And he was a couple months after having his child, so things didn't quite work out. But he's only a few hours away now, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a really cool company he's doing, and he's always done a lot of rad things. And there's a few people living out there in New Mexico now. Isn't Philip Moore out there too?
Yes, Philip's I think he was in Albuquerque. I'm not
Okay.
exactly sure, but yeah, I think he's hooked up, yeah, obviously with Sarah a few times, and I think it's like 2 hour drive or so, I believe. I don't remember the distance between Taos and Albuquerque.
That's not too bad.
Yeah.
I'd prefer Taos though if I was gonna live there.
That's why we stopped there. Our choices were Albuquerque or Taos, and it's like, all right, Albuquerque, been there, and it's a little further out of the way, so went to Taos.
Growing up in Denver, how has the city changed from when you were young to today? I know it's grown a lot. A lot of people moved there. Like, what's the city like now compared to how it was when you were a kid?
I would say it's just way bigger, and for like a city itself, it's not very big. But the population itself and actual physical space that is available has grown immensely, and it's awesome because with all that growth comes, skate spots, and a lot of it is apartments. So, more people, more opportunity for skating, and something that's been really big is skate parks. And when I grew up, there was the Boulder, skate park that everyone saw in, Harvard, or was it Hoax 2? Anarchy Across America, and like a couple of crazy, bull parks in the mountains. Now there's a park every, you know, less than 2 miles. There's two skate parks everywhere. So it's been an amazing development and seeing, the sprawl basically. And so,
Yeah.
it's also been good for business, bringing, work and other things to our city. So
Denver definitely has a lot of amazing skate parks. It has, I mean, it's mainly suburbs now, like because yeah, like you said, Denver is kind of small and it can't grow because it's already can only go up. But I think the thing I also like as far as skating goes is the amount of trails you guys have out there,
oh yeah.
which is like big wheel blading. I mean, there's trails everywhere. You can go all across the region into the Rockies on trails, and that's pretty rad.
Yes.
So it's like friendly for all kinds of skating. But one thing I noticed there, I don't know if that's new or not. I'm assuming it is the amount of traffic you have, especially getting into the mountains. And how has like the amount of people going into the mountains affected just nature and skiing and all that stuff, like enjoying the outdoors, going to parks? Like, has that changed for you?
Yeah, and you hit it on the head. And I don't want to say they're all weekend warriors. I think during vacations and a lot of summertime, you'll still find people up there on the weekdays. But uh, what used to be an hour drive to, say, Copper Mountain on a Saturday could take you 4 hours there, 4 hours back. And then, same traffic's on the hill as well. And the prices accordingly have skyrocketed. So for me, I haven't bought a season pass in the last 3 years, and partially because of knee problems, but mostly because it's just so expensive and you can't go anytime but the middle of the week.
Mm-hmm.
And it's frustrating. And but I think for me, I've been able to, with my job, luckily, doing freelance stuff, that I can go up when I have a day off and there's snow, and it's could be a Monday morning, and generally, unless it's some sort of event going on, that you'll have that normal hour-long drive, and nobody on the mountain, and I think once again it is mostly weekend warriors.
Do you ski or snowboard?
Snowboard. Grew up
And
skiing
how
though.
and how long have you been snowboarding for?
Uh, Grew up skiing. I started when I was, I think, 5 or 6,
Mm-hmm.
and so another 30 plus years. And started snowboarding when I think it was about 14, 15, going into high school, and been snowboarding ever since.
So tell me this. I always see it written. I don't even know how you say it, but the what?
There you
What
go.
is it? What does it mean? Where did it come from?
Nailed it. It came from me and an old friend, Tyler Williams, who I skated with in high school. And he just moved here from, I think it was somewhere in Utah, outside of Salt Lake. And not grammatically correct, but it's fun while having accepted time. And it's basically, live it up and enjoy life, because you're not guaranteed tomorrow. And it's sort of a motto.
Awesome. I like
Yep.
it. Now I know what it actually means. It's been so many years I've seen it. I had no idea what it means.
It's yeah,
It's kind of like
enjoy it.
Rob Z's motto, get your heart right.
Yep, exactly. Roll up.
That's right. That's awesome. I want to ask you, when you first did start aggressive skating, what was the first skates you had?
Some Veriflex, like store, Target or something,
Mm-hmm.
that were uh, hilariously held together by makeshift grind plates after the frames got grinded through. We pull one wheel out, and I think the first real skates I had was the Tarmac CEs, and those were, night and day. That was the first like legit production of a skate that I've like skated, and it was, life changing.
And those are the ones with that metal bridge grind plate.
Yeah, the full
Did, did
wraparound.
you skate that grind plate or you take
Oh
it
yeah,
off?
no, I skated the hell out of it. Once like the groove melded into the plastic, it was just one of the most amazing grooves ever.
I took the grind plate off right away. I was like, what is this thing? So like,
I was afraid of grinding through them, same thing, and it was like as soon as that happens, these things are useless. So
what's funny? I had, in the beginning, I skated a lot of Lightning TRSs, and then eventually they made those CDS Detroit like sole plate things
yep,
for them, so you
the
could
little
extend the
fins.
soles a little bit, little fins. And I used to do so many royales, and the plastic was so thin, so you would have a hole in the on a boot from doing royales, and every single one of my socks had a hole where the
Right
hole in
there.
the boot was because it was always wear through my socks.
That's hilarious.
So I thought that was pretty funny.
Makes
And what
sense though.
skates are you riding now?
I'm actually stockpiling skates finally in my life where I'm, you know, got the cash and a little more time to skate. I just bought the blank Sean Keen's rollerblade, which are amazing. I've got a stupid fat foot, so I just am stuck trying to find wider skates. And I actually just threw down on the new faction skates.
Oh, sick.
Excited to see those come out. Yeah, like yeah, I can't wait to see those. And that brings me back to the idea of the soft boot K2 style, super light, hopefully a little more resilient to wear and tear. But what was the question there that I just spawned off on?
It was what skates do you have now?
Oh yeah, and then I've also got a pair of the basements, which I'm struggling with because they are tighter around my shoebox, and then some Colts. So, and then of course I've got a big wheel pair of Seba FR1, so 3x110s. Got a plethora.
Do you skate with the Dust Crew at all? The Denver
Oh yeah.
Urban Skate?
Yep, went out last night and did some laps around Wash Park.
Awesome.
Got in 3 laps, so 8 miles or something like that.
When did you start doing big wheel blading?
A couple years ago, basically with Dust. And it was funny because I started out with, a setup of some anti-rocker BS, just checking it out. And then I went to my full wish frame setup, 72. Like, all right, none of this is going to cut it. So, once again, decided I would invest in the proper tool, which is amazing, for the first time skating those 110s and, just effortlessly cruising. So it's an amazing opportunity for me, especially getting older, just to keep skating and stay fit.
Right. Yeah, it's so much fun to cruise in
Yep.
the city.
Oh,
I
yeah.
went on a couple of dust skates before. It was pretty fun. Like right when I first started,
Nice.
when I came to Denver, right when I moved to Vermont. So
Yep.
was that like 4 years ago, whatever?
That's not
Uh,
working.
that was a lot of fun, and that's one thing I missed the most about being so rural is urban skates.
Yeah.
I miss them.
Well, and it's impressive because, like, I mean, just last night there, I mean, it was, it started out at 50, but by the time we were done, it was, mid 30s. And I think there were 6 people who was their first skate. So come summertime, I'm feeling this year, with the known COVID boost to rollerblading, we'll have skates with, probably over 100 people. So
It's amazing.
yeah, it's going to be intense.
And Rachel did a really good job putting that all
Oh yeah.
together.
Organizing it, and yeah, it's been outsourced to some other people that help out, and um, it's become a community, which is great because obviously she can't be available for all of them. Yeah, but the organizing and the legitimacy of something so just natural is amazing.
And I saw through her, like I don't know, last year that there's a shop now in Denver, like Death and
Yeah.
Glory,
Yep.
that sells aggressive skates and rec skates. And how's that shop?
It's amazing. And for those who don't know, they are the leading cash sponsor to the Mile High Battle for the last couple of years, throwing down large chunks of cash. But they, I think, mainly cater to, I would say, roller skating. But the owners are totally, he's a rollerblader, so totally into it. And if you want something they don't have, they'll get it for you. And it's just amazing to go try a pair of skates on. They stock all sorts of big wheel to aggressive wheels, all the good stuff. So it's been quite a while since we've had a skate shop anywhere near Denver.
Yeah, I can't even think of what the last shop was. What was the
Uh,
shop in Denver?
BC Surf and Sport, which was like the national crap. They were in all the malls. There was Soak Shop. There was some old one of the first skate shops that I ever had. Skated for actually. It was sponsored by them. Was what was that place called? Grand West out. What was it? Grand West? Yeah, I think it was Grand West. But yeah, it was. There's only been a handful, and I think there actually is now another shop that's opening up in the Springs. I could be wrong. I have to look into that.
For your work, you said you do freelance. You do filming and photography. Is that
Uh,
correct?
corporate, mostly live event production.
Live event
So
production.
yeah, directing, switching, uh, engineering, basically wiring the systems and projection, all sorts of stuff. So anything that you see in a concert or a corporate event, I'm behind the screens there pushing buttons. That's what I do.
And how do you get into that line of work?
Rollerblading. Compliments of growing up filming, once again following my brother's path of I mean, he was big computer nerd, works for Google now, had one of the first Macs and built his own capture scratch and all sorts of stuff, and learned to film skating. And the digital side basically is what we're still doing now, editing, and I've been doing that since I think we got our first camera when I was probably around 10 or 11. So, and went to school for film. Didn't see much of a real marketplace for that skill, in Denver at least, and I wasn't trying to, relocate. So looking around, I basically started filming ski videos for an old rollerblader, and then had some, you know, basically got to the point where there was no more going forward, so I moved on. And 2 days later, got a call from an old rollerblader from Des Moines, Jeremiah Ludeman, and he hooked me up with a corporate gig, filming a guy on a stage that was 8 feet wide on a giant studio config. And I was like, wait, this is a job? You pay people for this? Like I'm used to tracking, chasing people with a handheld camera on skates through skate parks, like this is like amazingly easy. So, and one thing led to another, and now I'm the one directing. So,
That's really cool.
yeah,
That's congratulations. That sounds
thank
like
you.
a lot of fun.
Sometimes it's a giant stressful ball of like madness. So
Have you done any really cool assignments? Like,
yeah, I do. I think, let me think, all sorts of big outdoor rock and roll stuff, and actually filming wise, I got hooked up once again through uh, Joe Escovel in Chicago, who hooked me up with the Riot Fest guys,
oh,
and I got to
cool.
be like one on one. The only camera. I guess there was. I think we had 3 video and 1 photo to cover 4 stages. Maybe it was 4, but we were only the ones allowed, in the pit after the 3 songs. Backstage, on stage, you name it. Riot Fest. D Antwoord, Soul to Dropkick Murphys and Slayer, Wu Tang. I brought my camera into the mosh pit at Slayer. It was
Sick.
insane. Yeah, and the director was right after they got in trouble in Chicago, and all their cameras got like rained on and covered in mud. So like I was out there, and he was like, "You can't do that." It's like, yeah, I can. It's my gear, and it was awesome. It was like, I think I enjoy the music stuff more than the corporate stuff. And I got to do, what was it? It wasn't. I guess it was an inauguration party for Jared Polis here in Denver, and Cyndi Lauper and Nathaniel Rateliff played, and it was just like, wait, what? Who? And we're in the Nature and History Museum, and giant speaker system, shaking artifacts on the walls, and some of that stuff is super exciting. But then you also get to work for all sorts of nonprofits raising money for all amazing different events, and causes, and getting a pulse on the market. Just did an event for Charles Schwab, and another one for TCF Bank, and it's like, or what was it? No, Caldwell, and so it spans the gamut and keeps things fresh. And sometimes it's just boring business, but other times it's insight and crazy science. So
Yeah, it sounds really rad.
yeah.
So, with your start in filming skating, I know you made a lot of the edits for the Mile High Battle and for the Colorado road trip. Uh, what about, did you make any like full skate length skate videos or like skate edits,
No.
profiles, or anything?
Made it. The last thing I made that was just like me was edit for Nolan, my old roommate, Wojciechowski, and that was one of the more impressive like skating adventures I've ever seen. It was business, and both of us living together, super busy, knowing our schedules. It was like, all right, here's my checklist. I got 2 spots, we're getting it, and we got 30 minutes, we're going, and it's just no warm ups, and one of the gnarliest things I've ever seen, just like 15 rails that are gapped by like a foot or 2 feet, and he topsoiled, through all of them, and it took him, I don't know, 20 minutes. That, I mean, just crazy stuff. And then, yeah, I think it took us a couple, not even a month, to shoot the whole thing. And so the turnaround and the business aspect was amazing. And then, like a full length video, last thing I did was with Billy Koska and Not a Lifeboat, and that was long, long time ago. And that was
I don't think I
YouTube.
saw that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Check it out. It's
Is it
quite
on
the.
YouTube?
I uploaded it to Vimeo, I believe. It was taken down, but if you can't find it, I've got a copy of it.
Cool.
So
I'll definitely hit you up if I can't find it. I
yeah,
want to see that.
it's amazing.
And Nolan is amazing skater.
Oh yeah,
He's burly, crazy stunt skater.
yes.
Did he ever do that transfer that we spent all day trying to film? Was it you, me, Jared, and Nolan? He was trying to do that kink trail down and then
Oh,
transfer.
I don't think he ever got that. I could be wrong though. At least not while I was there. I didn't see it go into anything, but
Because that was a pretty gnarly rail. I mean, he had it, and he just would fall at the very end.
yeah, and that's, I mean, some of the stuff he's done is downright insane. I don't, you drive by, you don't even think about it, and it's, oh yeah, I'm gonna go do that thing over there. I'm like, Psh, what? Okay, good luck.
Growing up, who were your favorite skaters?
Favorite skaters. Let's see here. I mean, the people that I ended up, you know, like geeking out on for the first time ever, and was it like NIS 94, 95, running into Dave Kolash, and John Julio. And I actually still have a photo that I shot of Julio when I was, I think, 9 or 8 at the reservoir at NIS doing a, classic rocket fish on the Bower box. And,
Red.
AJ Jackson and, Mark Nepple and all those guys, it was Matty Mance and, what's his face? Corey Nelson who was up
Hmm.
in Fort Collins and uh, all sorts of people. It just keeps going, and Andy Cruz, some of the more iconic people that I would look up to.
Yeah, I filmed a little bit with Corey Nelson when he came to Austin for MTV Sports and Music Fest,
Yeah,
and I believe it was like 1997 or 98, something like that. It was like Tim Ward and him and Roadhouse and Feinberg, and
nice.
we went street skating. It was pretty fun. Had some clips in one of my old videos that I
Oh
put
yeah,
on my YouTube recently, I believe, or no, I put it on my Patreon page. So check out the Patreon page in the description below
sound effects.
for link. All right. Oh, okay. And who are your favorite skaters today?
Today, I would say I'm really into Montre. He just goes so hard and still so solid, and I mean he's been doing it for so long. And uh, uh, who else can I say? There's so many people skating now, and I think that's one of the most amazing things that's going on right now. Seeing, I mean, go on Instagram and you can watch all the skating in the world just happen. Watching Demetrius come back right now is amazing. Still Aragon's getting out there, and he's still one of the most amazing skaters after he's gone, taken away. Um, but the let's see, who else can I think of that is crushing right now? I don't know, I'm drawing a complete blank. What's some favorite skaters? There's just too many. Like locally, Kyle Von Dangen's been crushing. Watching Ian Walker's recent Crazy Pills film with everyone in there is doing amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And John Bellino crushing it. The whole Mesmer crew, all of them. And there's so much, and every day it's another person who's doing something that you've never seen before, which is blowing my mind. I can't even keep up with it.
I want to know about puppy facials.
uh, it was a road trip story. Another amazing moment of Jeremy Spira's dog uh, humping my dog's face, Dakota, and ejaculating on her face. And that
Yeah,
is a puppy facial.
that is yeah. That's not what I was expecting, but
Yeah.
somebody said to ask, and then they got it. That was a good one.
Which brings
And
up Jeremy Spira, who's also been crushing from Denver forever. Also one of the best skaters out there right now, I'd say. So
oh, Jeremy is
cheers to
amazing,
Spira.
and he always has been.
Yeah.
Really, I've always enjoyed his skating, and he's just a really nice guy.
Yep.
He's really cool, and he's a great asset to Denver.
Yeah. Great
So
ambassador too. He's been
yeah,
around and supporting and throwing down basically.
and he hasn't aged.
Yeah. He
You
looks the
know,
same.
got great genes. And okay, so to Denver skaters, what is the best trick you've ever witnessed a Denver skater do?
Um, in person, uh, that's a hard one. With all the battles, it's like next to impossible to think about it. I think that topsail I was talking about that Nolan did with those transfers was like one of the more exciting things that I've ever seen watching someone do. Same with that gnarly king trail that he saw, just it's like 30 flat 30 or something, just Mach 10. And but I think Aragon jumping the reservoir gap, that is insane. I believe Colin Carr might have done it or tried it as well. Who, also another amazing skater back in the day who threw down But there's that's a loaded question. Um, I'm gonna go with Nolan's Topsoul.
All right. Nolan's the winner. Congratulations, Nolan. And who's your favorite Colorado rollerblader? Another loaded
Ever,
question.
ever or right now?
Let's say right now.
Oh man, right now. I think I might say Jeremy Spira. Like once
It's a
again,
good choice.
he's just been cruising, and just pushing constantly and making his own style and just doing it right.
And going back to Aragon, I know one thing I experienced every time I go to Denver is you drive somewhere, you're like, oh, look at that rail. And somebody's like, Aragon killed it. Aragon killed it.
The
Aragon
Aragon
did
effect.
this. He did, 360 top sold 900 out or whatever.
Yeah.
How has Aragon literally killed every spot in Denver?
Most of the old ones for sure, and it's always nice to shut your mouth and wait for someone to figure that out because it's some people get turned off by it, and I think it's awesome, and it's you show up to a spot and I don't give a crap what Aragon did on it, like sweet, I'm still gonna skate here. But when it comes to people getting stoked on their clip being, something special, and someone's like, oh yeah, check this Aragon I edited out from 12 years ago, and he crushed that spot. So luckily for most of the skaters now, there's a bunch of new stuff spot-wise popping up that Aragon hasn't shredded. So there's plenty of potential to get out from under the shadow of Aragon.
Who filmed Aragon mostly back in those days?
I'd say it depended. I'm honestly not even sure. I would say people who were traveling, like for AJ, people who are actually shooting their own videos, traveling kind of stuff. But I would assume Courtney and some of the guys that he was hanging out with. He was up north from where I was, so.
How many of the old Denver spots have been capped now? Like, has there been have they capped a lot of spots there? Or is everything still pretty skatable?
There's a couple of spots that have been capped, but there has also been a major resurgence of uncapping. So there are a lot of spots that have been revitalized, and I believe the S rail, which is one of the more iconic spots in the state up in Boulder, was decapped, and they put some stupid like doily, unskateable things on it after they'd put these rivets in it that you could skate over, which was really hilarious because they hated it, and it sounded like a train track car coming down the or what train coming down the train tracks the whole way, and it was a hilarious affront to their attempts. But yeah, I think actually I was talking to somebody the other day about the amount of spots they've seen that have been uncapped.
So by the S rails, there was those ledges, like the stair ledges that were in old videos.
Yep.
And I remember seeing those ledges and being like, I got to skate those. So I don't know, it was like 97 or 98. My dad and I went to Colorado, and that's like one of the destinations we had to go to.
Yep.
And I skated those ledges, and they were awesome.
Yeah. At the dorms.
Yeah.
Lady rail.
Super cool.
Yeah. Was it Brian Smith who front sided one after talking about boxes?
Yep.
He was moving in.
That's right. That's a long time ago.
Yep.
What's your favorite skate spots in Denver?
Right now there are a ton of awesome ledges that have been, jumping up. But actual, like, I guess it's nice because one of the spots we had for the battle has a bunch of sweet ledges, and they put in a skate park, a couple, I don't know, 300 yards away. That's a little bit, basic, but to have a little bit of transition with some ledges is pretty sweet. And that's off, what is that? I forget the Sancho something park, Poncho. But been skating mostly parks, and there's just so much of it, and actually would love to get back out and do some more street, but time and energy is limited. So.
And you have your mini ramp at your house. How often do you skate that?
I try to skate it about once a week. It's harder sometimes, of course, during the winter it gets snowed on, so I'm more cleaning it than skating it. But yeah, and I'd say during the summer I get out a little bit more, depending on physical abilities and availability.
It's a really big ramp, so it's got to take a long time to clean it up.
So it keeps me fit in the winter. It's it takes, depending on the snow, a couple of hours. So, and I have a snowblower that I used to use, but I've got to get a repair on. I'm having a leak in my carb. So,
how big is the ramp?
It's 48 feet wide and just under 7 feet tall.
And when did you decide to build it? Like, and what made you want to build this big ramp?
Well, it's, a childhood dream of mine. It was something that didn't really exist growing up in most of the country or the world. But basically, me, Frank Stoner, Kevin Barr, and Jared McBay were all hanging out playing dominoes regularly at Frank's house, and we put together an idea to pool our money, go find a piece of land out east, and hopefully with a warehouse, and build a ramp. And we started budgeting and figuring it all out, and I ended up buying a house in Denver in the middle of that had a half an acre. So it's like, all right, well, we don't need to move out east or, find some warehouse. We've got my property. And then that was pretty much it. And we started, I think, 20, was it 2017, 2018? Yeah, summer of 2018. So it's been going on is it that
Yeah,
long? I don't know.
it's
It
been
can't
that
be that long.
long because I moved. Let me see. I moved to Vermont in December of 2017, and I stopped in Denver on the way, like we had said earlier. And the first
Sick.
stop in Denver was your house because
Yeah.
when I was driving, I got stuck in a blizzard in Colorado Springs. It wasn't even snowing in Denver, and I didn't have snow tires. It was terrible. There was wrecks everywhere. I had to pee. I remember getting off of your exit and finally like peeing behind a building, and it wasn't even snowing there. It was just like all snow on the way there, um, and it was all you guys hanging out the ramp. And I came over and hung out, and it was really cool. And you also live pretty close to Frank Stoner, right?
Yeah, we're less like a half a mile from each other or so.
And is he still skating at all? Does he come to the ramp?
It's been a little while, but every once in a while he'll pull out the gear and roll over, and is, you know, still shreds. Still can do some of the crazier things you've ever seen on a ramp or anywhere for that matter.
He's always been such an amazing mini ramp skater. And I know back in the day he could do everything switch natural. I don't know if he still can, but he definitely used to be able to do it all.
That's definitely one of the things that we deal with on the ramp is trying to play, switch or natural, or just, we're tricks that I've stopped trying to even try, decades ago. Frank will inspire you to try that. It's like, all right, yeah, switch top acids that I don't ever do. Now's the time to learn that on the ramp. Thanks, Frank. Like, it's awesome.
What skaters have completely destroyed the ramp?
One of the best destroyers was Garrett Sloby, actually,
Oh wow,
who
yeah.
before the road trip just went berserker, and that guy is amazing, energy wise, skating wise, and he's boosting airs and grinding left and right, and it's just like, that guy is amazing. Jared Banning has destroyed the hell out of the ramp, as well as Kyle Von Dangen, the two of them with the sub box, and uh, Von Dragon. They are, some of the crazy. I think Kyle did like 540 True Soul or something on the sub box or something crazy like that, just insane stuff. And that he boosts airs. And I'm still trying to get Aragon to come over here and shred it because he would probably be up there in the top two.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I definitely seen some really cool Banning footage from
Yeah,
that ramp.
he
He's
shreds.
such a good skater.
Yeah.
And do you have any plans to make any additions to the ramp?
Not directly to the ramp as the ramp itself. We're having some structural issues with the railings just kind of getting flimsy, so I'm going to put
Mm-hmm.
a grind box on the whole south side
Okay,
to create a seat slash a brace and a box.
that's
But
gonna be cool.
yeah, and I'm hoping to take the Mastaba, which is next to it, the giant hill, and put a box off of that going the other direction, to create some of a down ledge situation.
Yeah, that'd be rad. It's gonna be like a mini Clark Kirkman compound.
Yeah, right. It's like between him and uh, Tim, it's just like, how do you guys do this? It's like,
I'd say you're in third place.
yeah. And what's his name out in California? He's got like that spine pump ramp. What the hell is his name? I forget. But yeah,
I've seen a few. Yeah, there's actually a few people with some really cool setups.
yeah. I'd say Tim is up like on in my mind the best, but yeah, what Clark is doing with the down rails and the kink ledges, and it's just like, man, I'm excited to get out there someday.
Yeah, I really want to get out there too.
Yeah.
Be pretty cool. And how many times have you had to resheet that ramp?
Um, Total devastation, like less than, I don't know, it was like 4 days after we actually completed it, we were, stupid and thought we'd treated this masonite to where it would actually be resistant to water, and that was stupid. Um, and it destroyed it with, like, once again, within 3 days, it was had to be pulled up, and then we shifted to plywood. And I think I've resheeted just the flat bottom really is the only one that gets a problem where the water sits. But I think five five times, something like that. And we actually just put for the fifth time, we went and spent that extra, like, a lot more money. Excuse me. Spent a lot more money and paid for the gator skins. So now we've got
Okay.
something that I hopefully won't have to resheet for quite a long time.
Oh, that'd be really rad. I can't wait to get out to Denver again and
Oh,
touch your ramp and
it's
do some street
whole new
skating
deal.
and all sorts of stuff. It's
Yep.
such a skate paradise. I always feel like Denver's like the Barcelona of the United States, as far as like skate spots and
Yep.
skating. Like not maybe as many skaters,
Yep.
but it does have a big scene. And how do the neighbors react to your ramp? Have you had any issues?
No, everyone kind of seems to not care. The couple people came out, and once we started building to the point where they knew it was a ramp to check it out, there was one hilarious story where Nolan was, I think he was back there prepping wood or something, and the neighbor, to the north of us was screaming like, "Hey man, what are you doing back there?" And Nolan said, "We're making a deck." And the guy just brushed it off, and then, another, like a week later, we started putting the transitions up, and the guy came out and started screaming to his kids, "Look, kids, they turned their deck into a skate park." It's just like, oh man, this is great, like, and he does have like this crazy accent that's just, I mean, it's just hilarious. And so,
That's really
it's just,
funny.
but nobody seems to care. And we've only had a few strangers try and hop the fence. I don't know really to skate. It's just, we caddy cornering up to a park, so there's opportunity for people to see it.
Have you had random people like come to ask to skate your ramp?
Apparently, there was one time where a younger girl showed up while I wasn't here, and my roommate at the time, Jesse, answered the door, and she had a skateboard, and I guess saw it from the park and wanted to come and skate, and he was just like, "No, sorry, like, not cool." But that's it.
That's surprising because I mean it's a pretty sizable ramp. I would
Oh yeah.
assume people would be like knocking your door all day. And I know one incident you had to ramp was the dog getting stuck underneath it. What happened and how did you get it out?
Oh man, that was Megan, her dog Arlo, who was I don't know, he was 5, 6 months maybe at the time, I think something like that. But very rambunctious and just happy-go-lucky guy, just doesn't, is like oblivious in a good way, And we didn't see him go under there. We assumed that he chased something, but it was on New Year's Day. Was it 2 years ago now? Had to have been 2 New Year's ago. But we couldn't find him, and we were, outside looking for him, assuming he jumped the fence or something. And all of a sudden, you could hear him like playing with him, like running under the ramp, and it's, this far off the ground, so you can't really run. He's like on his side, and you can hear him. And he made it under the first set of like rafters or beams, so we couldn't see him, from the back of the transition where he got in. And so we tried to, we started looking at pulling up the screws, but it was, 3 sheets of ply deep, and they're, crossed over at 90 degrees. So we'd have to pull up like 8 or 9 sheets that are covered in ice. We're like, this is never going to work. So pulled out the circular saw and cut him out. And he just super happy, loved it, had no issues with the saw, millimeters from his head. And as soon as he got out, he wandered right back in. So we had to like board up the entire thing. And it was just like, oh my God, you're so ridiculous.
He didn't learn his lesson.
Yeah, we were actually just talking about it last night at Dust. Megan and Nolan were there with Arlo and Dakota. It's like, oh man, this is.
That's funny. That's really funny. I posted some requests for questions for you from people. And
Uh-oh.
one thing people brought up was your relationship with food. Now, what is your relationship with food? People say you eat a lot in one sitting. Is this true?
It is true. I can eat a lot. And jokingly, growing up, was it the MTV show? Like, what was it? There was an episode about food fighting, and it was just a joke. Was it, the hell's the guy, Kobayashi, practicing to eat as much food as he could? And I'd tell my mom, I'd eat all the food on the table for everyone's leftovers, plus my giant burrito that nobody ever finishes. And it's just like, I I think I'm more of a binger in a way that is totally not healthy, but when I get to eating, it might be 2 meals worth of food in a way, and it can get pretty gluttonous.
What's the most you've ever eaten in one sitting?
A lot. I don't know. Like, uh, I mean, 2 Chipotle burritos isn't crazy. Like, that's not much. I mean, it's a lot, but that's like that would be in the near the top. But I'm guessing some buffet or some sushi or some Taco Bell party that went crazy.
Buffets are the worst.
Yeah,
Buffets always get you.
yeah,
And in sushi, especially, we used to have a
yep,
bunch of all you can eat sushi places, and
yep.
that got me too.
It's dangerous.
Um, yeah. And as somebody mentioned, I don't know what this is. It sounds kind of like perverse, but boofing chicken nuggets.
Boofing chicken nuggets.
What does that mean?
I'm guessing that's in relation to the now traditional chicken skipping contest on the road trip where we skip chicken nuggets on the lake.
That's funny. When did that start?
Yeah.
Because I don't remember that happening when I was there.
It's been a few years now. Basically, Zach Nelson stopped at McDonald's on the way back. I think we were in Edwards, so there's a couple of I think there's one McDonald's between there and camp, and bought 200 chicken nuggets, and just blew their minds, and showed up, and there was people were throwing down. There was like a pool put up of a bunch of beers, some hot dogs, and it was judged, and whoever skipped the longest, and there was playoffs, and it was a whole thing.
That's
It was awesome.
funny.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people eat a lot of really bad junk food on the Colorado road trip.
Yep.
And I also remember at one of the campsites, Jeremy Morris and Jeremy Rockwell eating lobster, cooking lobster on the
Yep.
on the
I was
fire.
there.
You were there.
Shrimp. What is it? Surf and turf.
Yeah. I was I was really jealous.
Yeah. After a while, you kind of develop some techniques or just the desire to eat something legitimate, and it's a little more special when you're out there camping.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Colorado road trip a little bit. Um, when did the Colorado road trip start? I believe it's like 25 years now this year, or
This is I think 24.
so
Started in
close.
'99.
It's
Yep.
almost a quarter of a century old.
Yeah. It's been drinking for a while.
Now, how did it start? Like, who were the original people to put it together?
Originally it was Sayre, Danforth, Tyler Higgins, uh, Connor, and myself, Mac McKay, and Charles Peng. And that was everybody, 2 cars, and it started with the year that Sayre and Tyler were graduating. So they decided they were going to have a camping trip, skate and see what happens. No idea, just headed west and got there and hit all those. I think there were 3, maybe 4 parks at that time, and now there are like 20 parks in the mountains. And we just kind of found the local park and skated, and then asked the local where we should go camp. And it's changed drastically in the last 24 years or whatever. But it was, basically a see you later, we're going to college party.
And the Colorado road trip hasn't really changed as far as a party. It gets pretty crazy. And I feel like part of it is because it's been around for 25 years and people are now older and they work and have careers. And it's like they're one time in a year to like do everything that they would have done in a year in like a
Yep.
6-day period.
That's That's a very good description, and it's interesting too because there are the people who it's their first time with that same, like they've never been, and they've are in that same description that you just described, and they go nuts, full craziness the whole night, every night, and then there's the older people who've been on it, 15 to 20 years, and they're just over it, and it's like there's not separate camps, but people will intentionally camp further away from the main fire or whatever.
That's what
There's
I do.
people, yeah, it's like, and then there's people who try to not camp next to you because you snore so much.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, how far away is yon right now? Like, I'm gonna get my earplugs in a quarter mile, I'll be good. But yeah, and it's interesting, and the same with the difference in the way people camp, and the like Larkin and K-Fed used to bring nothing on the road trip and just like sleep next to the fire pit and bum hot dogs and like that's it, didn't bring a tent, didn't bring anything. And it's crazy, so.
It's nuts.
And
I mean, people get so trashed and they don't sleep. I mean, some people don't sleep at all.
yep,
They like party all night, do whatever, and then skate all day, or they get completely wasted. Like when Rob Z was there,
yep.
and then
Then they
slept all day,
slept.
didn't see one skate park.
Yep. And that's something that people don't think about a lot is the altitude. In the last few years, we've been just outside Leadville at 11,000 feet. Even for me, I go out there early to scout the site and, put down decoy tents to hold the space. And holy crap, like the first day you drink 2 beers and go for a hike and you're lightheaded. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
from here, but I'm at 5,000 feet, not 11. And so you get somebody from Austin showing up to, I think that was the night when we were outside of Keystone and got shit faced, butt naked, and hanging out at you know almost tree line, just pounding it. And it's like, yep, drinking tequila all night long. And the next morning, it's like, yep, that dude's fucked. Like literally, just there's never you can't get out of it. And that's hydrate, roll up.
I got altitude sickness there. I don't know. That one year we went early. We flew in, and then Jared took us on a hike up some, 14,000-foot mountain or whatever. First day there, and I got the worst altitude sickness. I mean,
Probably Mount Elbert.
it was miserable. One of the worst experiences I've ever had. But I was also one of the only people to climb the mountain. Everyone else
Yeah.
pushed out. It was just me, Jared, and the guy he was living with. I forgot his name.
They were all probably way less miserable than you.
So yeah, they were way less miserable. So when did you sort of take the reins yourself? Because a lot of those guys stepped away, and you've been continuing it for a long time now, kind of the main guy in charge, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's gotten to the point where, thanks to the internet, there is, I can deflect to the masses and spread information that people can rely on, without having to have one person in charge and follow. Like the first few years when there wasn't even cell service, we would have to stay in a caravan. We had radios, which was awesome. You're mobbing from, I don't know, uh, Glenwood going to Grand Junction, cruising down through the canyon with like 12 cars and just an amazing chain of chaos, and it's like not a road rage war like race to the park, but it was like you felt like this force moving down the mountain. But now, and that was, I think Sayer and them were still around for the 3-4 years hanging out, and Tyler actually went to school in Boulder, so he was still there. But yeah, I think after about 4 years, and then I was in college, uh, just kept keeping it going, and it's not something I do. It's, if I didn't do it, everyone would still do it anyways,
Mm-hmm.
it's at that point, and it's awesome. And we did, originally it was just a traveling, circus that every day you'd pack up and move to the next spot. And originally it was just Friday and Saturday night, we come back Sunday and that was it. Since it's turned into up to a week, and then depending, a little more on either side, depending on what you want to do. And the route has drastically shifted from, it was all on I-70, and we actually did I think it was for the 20th, we went back and did the original route. Of course, it's changed because we were camping for 6 to, I think we managed to like 60 people, but now it's like upwards of 100. So you got to find somewhere where, 30 to 50 cars can get to, and camping for that many people, and, trees and cover, and, there's a lot of logistics that go into it. And yeah, it's been pretty amazing to see the trajectory on where it's going. And, hopefully this year we can actually do another moving trip. Hard part is forest fires that we've been struggling with.
Yeah, the movie trips are my favorite personally. I love just driving and seeing the scenery.
Yep.
And with the one campsite, I think my biggest problem with it is I never see anyone at the skate parks. Like everyone goes and does different stuff, right? And with the movie trip, everyone's kind of doing the same thing, and I like that more because just people want to see. I don't even see them the whole week, you know.
Yeah, it's
Um,
crazy.
how did you like with the growth of the tenants? And you had to find a new campsites, like you said. How did you actually scout and find those campsites?
Lots of driving. Basically, me, Nolan, and 2 dogs got in the Subaru and drove every single forest road off of every main road that made some sort of sense for a route for skate parks. Um, hundreds of miles and just bumpy, crazy roads, and you get to the point where it's like, all right, you need an off-wheel or four-wheel drive, like off-road vehicle to get to this. Like, we can't do this, go back, And it's like, oh, this spot's great, but you can't park here, or you have to hike your stuff in here, or and some of that actually has been helpful for me personally, because I've got a whole database of camping sites. But when the moving trip started, we've got to the point where people are staying through Monday, Tuesday, where we get away with doing some of those smaller spots, like Telluride, which is one of the most skipped spots because it's 6 hours away from Denver, and it's usually Sunday night we drive there, or Monday, depending on the trip, and it's the most amazing part. And so there's, you know, constantly changing, but with the lower numbers, you can still manage to do it.
Telluride is my favorite for sure. And there's also the gondola you can take up, which is free to go to the top and see everything, which is really rad. And you can hike down, mountain bike down, whatever. It's pretty cool. When did you decide, or when and why did you decide to go from the road trip, the traditional road trip you guys did around the state, to one campsite?
Well, there's a number of reasons. One of them is the fire bans, and it really sucks to go from high desert, no fire, down to the mountains, no fire, and then one night you get fire. And there was, I think, 2 years now where that's pretty much been the case, where there's been a fire ban the entire time except for the last spot, and most people don't even get to see that. And so nighttime, everyone's freezing cold and they can't do anything. Most of the people cook on the fire, so it made existence really difficult. But for something you already brought up, a lot of the people are, getting older, and they do want to see their friends and they want to hang out with a bunch of rollerbladers, but they don't even skate. There's a number of people who've never brought their skates on the road trip, and they're coming to see their friends, to go, rafting, climbing, fishing, hiking, and that's what you are afforded at the single campsite because you know where the campsite is. You don't have to, follow the carpool or pick up your camp and move it that day. And so, and that's something I really like, which is awesome. And we've last 2 years, thanks to COVID, we've been kind of avoiding creating a central campsite. The first year we did that, we went out early and put up a bunch of giant tarps and made Tarp City, and had speakers and power for people to plug in their stuff, and it became like a fort that was ours.
I was there.
Yeah, it's epic. And it changes things. It's like people are bringing espresso makers and, like mansion-sized tents, and it's like, if you don't have to pick up, yeah, I had a generator and we're playing N64 in the middle of the woods, it's like, yeah, this is awesome, but some people want to go to sleep early and wake up and go climb a 14er, like, awesome, have fun, which if we're moving, you can't really do that.
Well, in Leadville, you're already on a 14er, right?
Yeah, close. You're like right at the base of one. Yeah, you just got to start walking up.
So the Leadville skate park, for people who don't know, it's the highest elevated skate park in the country. It's also like the highest elevated town in the country.
Yep.
And it's very difficult to skate if you're not conditioned, or if you're like a smoker or unhealthy. It's definitely not a easy park.
No, and that's once again one of the sad, bittersweet moments of the road trip. Is it is one of the most amazing parks on the trip, but it's also at such high altitudes you can't enjoy it. Like, unless you get up there early. And once again, with the single site, I see a lot of people who've like figured that out, and they'll wait towards the end of the trip to go hit Leadville or hit it on their way out because they're as most acclimated as possible. But yeah, it's brutal. And even me, same thing. If you go up there dehydrated and just try and pump around, you'll get sick. It's just like, oh, I can't take it.
Which parks on the road trip do you look forward to skating the most every year?
Best parks on the road trip. I would say one of my favorites is Edwards. Tons of street style stuff, which is what I really love to do, but also cool little snake run, and it's right next to the river. So you get, everybody, even the people who don't want to skate, who want to show up and go chill in the river. So that one's probably up there. I really like Snowmass just for its flow and size. It's way more compact. And then, which one of the harder ones that we haven't gone to in a while, which hopefully this year I'm going to try to do the Southwest route, which will put us through Gunnison, which has like one of the nicest quarter pipes I've ever skated in like an outdoor free park. It's like 8 feet tall, 30, something feet wide, and it's comes out to a wave, so super sweet. And it is just from the single campsite a little far. I think it's like a 3-hour drive. So
That is a really cool park.
yeah.
And the swimming holes on the trip are really nice, but if you haven't been, they're really cold. Almost all of them are really cold. What's your favorite place to swim on the trip?
I really like the river in Edwards, but they're all fun. Going just to Punch Bowl and watching people jump that thing is impressive. And I've only
Mm-hmm.
once seen someone go from like the top, which is like, if you don't know, it's you have to clear like 20 feet and then there's a ledge and it's probably 50, 60 feet into a river. That's, if you go too far, you hit the other side. So that is the most exciting. But I think the forebay itself, like at the main campsite, is pretty epic for fishing, swimming, boating, kayaking, floating. It's got it all.
I think one of my favorite things about the Colorado road trip and just Colorado in general is the hot springs. I love going to hot springs. I remember one year we went to like one, it was just like randomly in a field. It wasn't even actually like a hot spring place, just a natural hot spring. But there's a lot of cool hot spring like places where you can pay to go in. What's your favorite? Do you like the hot springs? And if you do, what's
Yep,
your favorite one?
they're awesome. There's actually a new one in Glenwood. I think it's Ironton or Iron Mountain or something. But it's more of an established, pay to go type of place. But they have a whole uh, like arrangement of, I think it's like they got to have like 20 or 30 pools, and each one is cool because they tell you what the minerals are in it and all the benefits or side effects. And um, but I mean, as far as like just walk and go, strawberry is pretty sweet out of Steamboat. But I think I don't know if it's the one you're talking about, but there's one outside of Glenwood that we used to go to that was basically right off where the bridge jump was.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
And those are cool. Like it's really sweet to just go and like find that, And
Uh-huh.
there's one outside of Kremling, same thing, and it's like super cool. But depending on when you go there, it could be packed with 4 people, and that's enough, and it sucks. And you're like, all right, I wish I could just pay to soak. And at the end of the road trip, I think it's Mount Princeton or one of those hot springs, and it's amazing. One of those things that a lot of people also drive home instead of doing, but it's one great way to end the road trip is soaking in a hot spring. So
Wow.
definitely
It's my favorite part.
recommend it.
I love it. And the Colorado road trip has also inspired other people to make similar road trips. Like you have the Northwest Shred Tour, you have like the Utica Camping Blade or whatever in Utah.
Utah.
And then I do the New England Blading Camp, which is also inspired from the Colorado road trip. And it's very inspired because we do the swimming and skating. Our swing spots aren't as cold. I mean, they're cold. They're cold, but they're not as cold. So, and I think the difference between like with mine, how we're talking about how it gets a little crazy. I was like, I needed like a more like a family orientated, camping trip. So it's just like almost no partying. I mean, a little bit, minimal, and like mainly just like skating. And
There's been children on the Colorado road trip. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm just saying,
Family
like,
friendly.
like chill. I'm talking about like
2-year-olds.
like chill. But it's really fun. But the problem I have with doing an event here is Colorado has all the BLM land, like Bureau of Land Management, where you can camp pretty much anywhere in the national forest. But we don't have that. We have national forest, but we don't really have places you can pull up and camp with more than like 4 people or something. So, right now people camp at my place and my friend Miles's place. So that's like the 2 bases. And I'd really wish it would open up where we could skate if we actually had the ability to camp, public land. And not having hot springs here is very sad.
Yeah, it's pretty
Now,
cool. See.
yeah, it's really cool. Have you been on any of those other trips? I know you've been on a Northwest Shred Tour,
Yep.
at least when we went to Montana.
Yep, I did it that year. I went to the Southeast road trip through Tennessee, and I've done Havasu, Blade Havasu, which is an awesome, like similar single campsite
Hmm.
setup. It's just one skate park, which is one of the most amazingly large skate parks ever, and it's awesome. And the Montana one was fun, and same point, and it's like there are places, but it's hard to get enough for a lot of people. And so it's like, we camped in, national forest campsites, which are awesome, but there is a limit there for partying, which if we brought the road trip there, we'd definitely have the police there real quick.
Oh yeah, I mean that was a crazy trip because first of all, it was a lot of people because it was in Montana and no one's really been to Montana, so it was like a really good reason to go
Rush.
finally see Montana. So it was like a lot of people. And the first night we camped on that Indian reservation in somebody's backyard and like
Yep.
tripled the population of the town, which was like crazy. And it was like, I mean, jam packed, full of tents.
Hmm. I was
And
sleeping between you and Frank.
yeah, that
It
was
was,
a
it was like, what I say? Was this a fucking logging camp? Shut the fuck up! And it's just like,
and on that trip too, I know that they did a little bit different because they had, well, we stayed in Glacier National Park, but they also had a state park that didn't allow dogs. And so you and me and Frank and some other people camped out in like the national forest off some logging road, like Colorado road trip style. And that was pretty cool. But it was also kind of creepy.
terrifying.
And this was the same area where like a week later, the forest ranger got killed by a grizzly bear.
Yep.
So we got lucky.
Yeah. Well, we had dogs for security, so we were good.
Now with dogs is another big part of the Colorado road trip. There's a lot of dogs, and it's kind of cool with the dogs because they all have little headlamps around their neck, so you just see lights through the woods and everywhere.
Yeah.
And what's the situation with the dogs on the road trip? It's obviously very dog friendly.
Yeah. Bring your dogs. It's a whole dog fiesta. Definitely watch your snacks and your secret stash of whatever, because they'll find it. Especially when it gets dark, they can see and you can't. Definitely had some horror stories of my old dog Dakota snatching like full steaks out from under people and like just looking down and it's gone. It's like, holy shit, what happened? And it's like, oh God. So
And Dakota was an awesome dog. And Dakota was not the only Dakota. There was like a lot of Dakota dogs. It's like a
there was
popular dog name.
at least Whitey and Blackie, and we lived together. White Dakota and Black Dakota. Yeah, and they were cruising on the road trip for many a year. So
And with all the people on the road trip, all the people at the campsites, all the partying going on, has there been any trouble with the police?
not directly, but yes, we've never gotten in trouble. We had one instance where outside of Palisade, which is why we've moved the campsite on BLM land, they're starting to build houses out there, and basically the neighbors in the middle of nowhere call the cops on us, and it's BLM land, so the local police have no jurisdiction, and they showed up and basically told us good job. And it was still one of my favorite stories of the road trip. And we were seeing from a mile off, and of course Mike Hell is just showing up. It's sundown, he's putting his tent together, and the cops are rolling through these desert hills on normal sedans, and they show up and they like spotlight Mike Hell, who's setting his tent up like at dusk, dark, and hey, who's in charge here? And Mike Hell just pops up from building his tent and says, rollerblading, and like just goes back about his business and like just shuts up, and it's like, oh my God, like this is amazing, but they called it in and they couldn't do anything, so they gave us a pat on the back for finding a spot that was out there and basically screw the neighbors, see you later.
Well, that incident, that's when they came up to us, like, because everyone was sitting around the fire, tripping mushrooms, except me and maybe like Frank. And I was wearing my Mickey Mouse, like Christmas sweater, and they were talking to us, and we were the only people sober. And they were like, "Why is everybody being so quiet?" And the whole time in my head, I'm like, "Because they're all tripping balls. They're like freaking out, right?" But we just told them, "Yeah, everybody's just chill,
Yeah.
And then the cops liked my beard, and I got photos with them all.
I didn't
Like
hear
it was,
that part.
yeah, it was pretty funny. Like they're like, "Oh, our other guy's got a beard. Like, let's get a photo." So it was like a group photo, and I had my sweater. It was like, it was a
St. Patty on the beard.
pretty funny situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then there
And
was the machete incident.
the machete incident. That's probably the darkest period of the Colorado road trip.
Yeah, 100%. There's been, other aggressive idiots, people get drunk and just get stupid. But when it comes to real stupid, waking up to a guy chopping your friend with a machete and like sending him to the hospital was like terrifying. And the people who saw it were terrified. And
Hmm.
basically, we called the cops. He ran, and we took Dom to the hospital where he got stitched up. He got like cut all the way in his elbow, like in his ribs back here, like slashed on the back. But there was like full on threats to chop his head off, and the whole it was terrifying. But the cops, of course, showed up after, and most people got up and like scurried. They freaked out and ran, which left a bunch of half-burning campsites that Cody Lampman actually stuck around and dealt with the fire marshal and the fire department and the police, and it was pretty serious.
And the guy who had the machete, he's since been arrested. He's in jail now, right?
Yeah, and I think from what I understand, he didn't quite get a slap on the wrist, but didn't get much for that. But then right after that, I think, pulled a gun on somebody or something, so got, a charge on top of his probation, and I think he got a pretty substantial sentence after that.
So prior to that, there's pretty much no rules in the Colorado road trip, right?
It's still the only rule right now is no machetes.
No machetes. And I'm pretty sure the machete incident was the same trip as the police in the desert campsite.
I believe you are correct.
Yeah. That was like the most eventful non-skating.
Wait, actually, I don't know if that could be true because they were on the separate route, so I don't know if that is true.
No. Well, I was on both of them, so.
Yeah. I've been on all of them, so it's like, yeah, I don't know, but I know that's on the other side of the mountain, so I don't think so, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't remember exactly because I went to 5 of them in a short amount of time.
Yep.
And they're a lot of fun. And one thing I love the mountains. I love Colorado. I love hiking there. And do you do a lot of hiking like in the summertime?
Yeah, not so much recently. I've been actually, I mean, technically hiking, but going sport climbing and, enjoying some of the other features available. But yeah, growing up and, going to school in Boulder, I was hiking, regularly. So it's definitely one of my favorite pastimes.
Do you have a favorite mountain to hike?
I like the Flatirons. They're, steep as hell. They can kick your ass, but then you get some of the best rewards out of them. But, Clear Creek is amazing, and it's, back to your point about people. Like I haven't been up to the Flatirons in ages because the weekends it's like impossible. You're just walking amongst tons of people. At least the last 2 times I tried, but definitely some of my favorite spots.
So after doing the Colorado road trip for 25 years, what are some of your favorite memories?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of my favorite memories, and it's a lot of them around that desert spot, and it's like a surreal space. You don't really go camp in the desert. At least I don't. But one year, it was towards the beginning, a bunch of glow sticks got broken out, and somehow we were cutting them and throwing them all over the place, and a glow stick gets thrown like 60 feet, and Sayer catches it over his head and just screams, "Give me the power!" And it was just like amazing. It was like full on, like just fun, pure fun. And I think around that same time we used to ride the topper, like the car topper as a sled down the plateau there, and it was insane. And looking at it in the daytime, you're like, that's ridiculous. There's giant patches of cacti everywhere, and it's like, okay, it's like you guys are nuts. And still, some of the more exciting moments on the road trip that I can remember. And then I think something that stands out was Keaton's Memorial that we did. That was breathtaking, to see that many people come together, especially on the road trip when it's complete chaos, to just shut up and like reflect.
And that was in Telluride too.
Yeah.
At like the most beautiful location.
Yeah, spreading his ashes, the whole thing was, like it's gonna make me cry. That's the stuff you remember, the family stuff, the, playing video games in the middle of the mountains in the middle of the night, just wasted with your friends, screaming about Mario Kart, or the fact that there's 100 people at the skate park. This is amazing. And I think, and it's not just one time, but one of my favorite like occurrences is the shock and awe on the locals. And that happens more so, I think, when we're doing the moving trip, because we do show up with 70, 80 people to one skate park, and the locals, the police show up just to be like, holy crap, I heard that, to your point, we've doubled the whole population of this city, and it's pretty sweet.
Has doing this road trip for 25 years been overwhelming at all at points for you?
Um, Not so much. I mean, the machete thing was intense, and the police showing up where, uh, who was it? Was it Carson? Somebody came up to me. I think it was, I don't remember, but they basically said the cops wanted my credit card, and they were going to charge us $10,000 to, like, for some fee or something, of course. And I was just like freaking out. But the finding campsites was fun, and I think for the most part, outside of people not cleaning up after themselves, that's the only thing that really irritates me. And I think there's been better years than others, but in most cases, I would say we clean up and leave the place better than we found it. But for me, the road trip is just like you explained it. It's the one time a year where I just let go and say, fuck this, let's have fun, and let people be people. I guess this last year was some super stupid, just psycho, I think, military dudes that ended up threatening to shoot Locke, and like shot a gun like in the campsite, and it was like one of the more like terrifying things. And of course, I'm sleeping through it mostly. I heard one gunshot, and I saw, like, somebody brought a gun and they're shooting a target or something. Come to find out the next morning that these guys, shot a gun, and they're not our friends. And that was like the one time where I was full on terrified. And it's like, oh God, this sucks. Like, and that's when we were doing a single site, and they were camped at the same place. And that, became stressful. But
That's
other than
crazy.
that, yeah, it's somebody had some fireworks and they didn't like it.
And Locke had the fireworks because Locke always has the fireworks.
It's one of those things, and even going back 20 years, that was, it used to be, I think, more people brought fireworks, and it was more of a desert thing. You'd
Hmm.
wait till the last night, and there'd be like a firework war, and it's in the middle of the desert, way less chances of nonsense, and no fire bans. And now it's like every year we go, there's no like super limited fire options, and definitely no fireworks. And then here comes Locke with his full assault.
Do you foresee the Colorado road trip ever ending, or is it something that's going to continue forever?
I'd love to see it continue forever. And once again, I don't think there's any limits to it. And even, to your point that it's already spawned off into, inspired other options in different locations. And I think it's going to be hilarious. We're in our 60s hanging out around the campfire, like maybe going to check out the skate park, like camping in the RV park, and it's still fun. And that's what's, nice. And to just get together with people from around the country and world, actually, to just something you all can agree on, and it's nice. You're all friends through rollerblading.
Yeah, it's a beautiful event, and it's one of the coolest events in the sport of inline skating. Like, if I'm going to tell people to go somewhere, it's going to be Colorado Road Trip, or Winter Clash, or Blading Cup. Like, those are kind of like the three main events in the sport.
I like hearing that. Appreciate that.
So yeah, you've
And
done
it's
a great job, and you've
mostly not me
dedicated.
doing anything. It's just
Yeah, but it's the job you
making a
did.
post on the internet. Beep,
I
beep,
know,
beep.
but without your foundation and your groundwork with the campsites, and
No,
you know, it wouldn't be what it is today. It might
thank you.
run itself now, but it needed you to make it all happen to begin with. Now, another event that you're part of is the Mile High Battle, and the Mile High Battle just had its 20th anniversary.
That started in 2000, so it would be 21.
22,
Yeah,
21.
22.
So also a long
Yep.
standing event out of Colorado. So you've got the longest road trip in skating history, and Mile High Battle has got to be one of the longest continuous street skating competitions in the sport as well.
Yep.
How did Mile High Battle start? Like, who was the initial people that put that together?
The originator, Adam, my brother, and once again, Tyler Higgins. So we can all thank Tyler Higgins for creating the two longest lasting events in the industry. And what their motivation was, I'm not sure, but it was when, they just both started college, and they, Adam had built a website for the local skate scene, 5280, and it was far as I know, one of the first, blog type forums that was created, and ended up developing like a skating app through it and everything. But they took it for, I think, 6 or 8 years or so, I think, or I'm trying to remember, when my brother finally, threw in the towel. When I think it might have been 9 years they did it, and it was, figuring it out as they went, and it was epic every year. And it's funny looking back at those, first few years where people are winning, like $200, and now the winner's getting 3, 5, $1,000. And yeah, and I took it over in the 10th year, I believe, and that was like, I went from like here and like to over here, welded a rail across a ditch and had a live band and shoot, edit, premiere all in the same day. And I've technically stepped back 2 times. One time I just, completely just was done. And for me, it's one of my busy seasons for work. And so it's just so much extra to put on my plate. And finally just had to like, I got to step away and, get my head right, because this is stressful. And that's when like Jeff Stanger and a couple other people, Smiley's always been in there, Jason Mosley, McBay, and a bunch of other people, and everyone steps up. And last year, actually, McBay similarly stepped away, and I was out of town. Like, it was the first one I've actually missed. And yeah, Jeff Stanger and Kyle and, Spira, Andrew Moore, a bunch of people stepped up and produced it. Zach Nelson, a bunch of, great people, and it's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
Once
that's
again, it
awesome.
sustains itself.
Yeah,
It's like everybody knows the routine. It's like,
that's really cool when you have a scene. Well, it also helps that you have such a big scene in Denver.
yep.
Denver's got a lot of skaters. It's got a lot of guys that've been around for a long time, but the scene's big, compared to a lot of other cities. Now, what was your favorite Mile High battle?
I think the one where we welded the rail across the river was like next level. We had a generator and live music, and just people were going crazy. I mean, the cops showed up and couldn't believe that we used, like anchors and anchored things into the concrete with a hammer drill. We put 2 rails, one that was across the launch and then 2 in the river, while my buddy Odom Relic, also rollerblader, Toby, was playing a live set, and it was just like, and that was when I first started doing like actual after parties, and doing I think it was, I don't even know if I did this. I don't think I did it was the same shoot, edit, premiere that year, but the second year I did it, which was the 11th, I did, and the 12th. And, with Adam Montoya and, a couple other people helping out, we were able to, film 3 different spots, edit the footage, and premiere it at the after party with friends who were playing a live show, and it's like,
Wow, that's
yeah,
really cool.
and 3 cameras, so
Yeah,
I'm going through 9 hours of footage for each spot, just scrubbing, just like anything someone lands, I just clipped it, threw it in a timeline, and then put, pre-selected music, pre-selected titles, all the graphics. And I had 2 hours basically from when it was over to hit export and like twiddle my thumbs and hope that, the shit wouldn't crash,
that's amazing.
Like,
That's a lot of intense work right there.
stressful.
Yeah,
And it's, and now it's, what I tried to do last time, and it wasn't me who was producing it, but trying to do live stream. And that's something I'm trying to do again this year.
live streaming the Mile High battle. Yeah,
we did it out of my truck with the.
it's so cool how easy it is now to live stream.
Well,
compared
live
to
stream with a phone or live
yeah.
stream with a bunch of cameras that are being.
Well, I mean, it's just still like
Oh, yeah,
it's still more
it'd been like
accessible.
a sat truck. Yeah.
Yeah,
like
it didn't used to be
full.
accessible like it is now.
Exactly.
Um,
It's like, wait, what'd you do with the truck? You put it where? And you drove around and streamed a skate
yeah,
park.
I mean, it's like a drone. I mean, to get that kind of footage
Yeah.
in the past, like
Exactly.
you got to get on a helicopter or like tie it to a balloon and let it pop and come back down.
Yes.
um,
Footage.
what's some of the most memorable tricks that have been done at the Mile High battle?
Oh man, that's decades. I think one of my favorite, it was just like a legit battle, was Broskow and Aragon, and I think that was had to have been like the 5th or something. I don't even know, but gnarly 20 stair down rail with metal edge stairs, and Aragon fast lit it, and Roscoe went to do a true top acid, and as far as I could tell, stuck. It didn't look intentional. And from our vantage at the top, he fell backwards. It looked like he just backflopped, but somehow he turns into a back royale. And you're just like, like, what just happened? And seeing those back and forth pushes was insane. And the year PJ came out and threw down and smashed his head and went hard. Uh, I mean, every year, what was it? The wasn't the streaming. I think it was three years ago, where Kyle 180'd the it's like 20 stair or something into the river like path. Insane, and it's just some of the most amazing stunt skating under that kind of pressure that just is insane, and you can't find that vibe anywhere else. It's like everybody there just throwing down.
Who's consistently skated the craziest throughout the history of the event?
Consistently throughout, that's a hard one. Jared Banning has always been, like, anytime he's competed, has been in the top like three, I think. Second place too many times. Hopefully he'll be getting his first place sometime soon. And Philip Moore's been coming out and shredding the last couple years and winning. And of course, Aragon, who was, too good. We actually, and this was before my time, made a no Aragon winning rule, basically, where he could come skate, but there was no way he could win. It was just like, it's not fair, and it's like, yeah, it's not fair. But back in the day, with, Dustin Holleran showing up and Spicer and, crazy, it was a thing then, and it was, yeah, there's a bunch of pro level people skating, and now it's like, Aragon and, there was nobody else on that level. And so watching him just destroy everything, and it's like not even a question, it's like, yep, he wins. I think Cody Lampman also, like, anytime he skated, has done like ridiculously well, and his trick selection and overall like intensity of everything is top notch.
Cody Lampman is so good.
Yeah, he's amazing. And things you couldn't, like, true negative soyal, like, on a what, excuse me, like, I can't even fathom that. It's like,
So I've been to two of the Mile High battles, and the one that was the most entertaining to me was the one with the Ben Weiss truck stop, where Ben Weiss had his truck set up
that
as
was a
an
memory.
obstacle,
Yeah.
and he was very adamant that nobody break his window, and he broke it himself.
Yep, put his foot right through the back.
Foot right through the back.
Yeah, and that was, I mean, Ben Weiss. Yeah, that's another, and he's one of those who throws down at every comp ever, and he'll show up at the last spot just like amped up. It's like, where have you been all day? It's like, get out of my way, I'm going to disaster this kinked rail like backside. And you're like, what? Okay, have fun, Ben. Don't kill yourself. And so that's part of the energy I love about it. And yeah, that's definitely one of the more entertaining obstacles we've ever had.
Now, hosting a street competition, I know one reason most of them don't stick around for that long is because the pain in the butt with dealing with the police and authority. What has been your experience with that?
Of course, we've had the police show up a few times in the past. I think the last year McBay did it 2 years ago. The police actually, like, full on shut us down. We're taking his info and threatening potential charges based on discussing it with the school. But even in the 10th year where we bolted rails to the ground, as long as we got it out, they didn't care. But never had any, like, knock on wood, serious shaking damages or anything like that. So I think overall I've been pretty lucky with that.
That's great. And you'd mentioned that the prize purse has gotten pretty big now. How you raised the money? Like, who's sponsoring it?
Like I said earlier, Death and Glory has thrown down like the largest sum of cash that I think one person has ever donated. And obviously they're an entity. But I think it was 3,000 they threw down the first year, and they pretty much did the same this last year. And I think it was 3, and that was like, we weren't even thinking we were going to do it, and I was trying to be non-involved, and once again the community popped up, and between Stanger and Kyle and a couple other people that once again it just became committee and took it together, and we do get a significant contribution through GoFundMe or online stuff. And hopefully, timing wise, and that's another thing that like I felt like I couldn't give it enough time to do it right, and that's a matter of having time to do fundraisers. We've done one on the ramp that was really successful, but in the past, just throwing parties, we did like I think it was 2015, make your own shirt. We just made stencils and people showed up and paid $5 or whatever. But my parents actually, like for a long time, my mom, it was funny, like was huge supporter of the scene, and she would donate, and then my dad would see that she donated, whatever, $200, $300, and then he'd donate more, and it's like it's my parents, fighting to one up each other to
That's
help
really
us.
cool.
Yeah, and you're just like, yes, thank God. And like I'd see it and be like, hey dad, check this out. Look what mom sent me. And it's like, fuck. All right, now I gotta, just take it to the next level, which is, awesome. And so I think, yeah, and I think day of too, we do, that's probably about 20 or 30% of our, maybe even more, a little over 30% of what we pull in is, registration and just on-site donations.
I want to talk a little bit more about your skating. What is your favorite trick to do?
Favorite, it's either a back farv or a rough grind.
And the rough grind is a trick you're known for. You've rough grinded some really crazy spots. You did the 244 rail in Omaha, Nebraska. That's gnarly. How do you like get good at that trick?
You get hurt a lot. And it's like I was first turned on to it through Seth Miner, and skating in Arizona and seeing him do a rough grind where his like back foot, his knee is almost touching the ledge and just like super slash stance. But I still remember learning it, and I've tried it on just like a 6 stair like grass rail, and I kept trying topside, sweaty like rough, and just kicking over and missing, just smashing, right and like right down the middle of the rail every time. And finally, once it locks, I mean, it's one of the like more precise tricks, and it's more precise to do, but it makes it, I think, in my head, easier for that reason, because it is one little point that you hit and you're done, like it's over.
How many tries did it take to do a 244 rail?
uh I think like maybe 10. And we were in the dead of heat of summer right after the Windy City riot, and we slept on the street like after the riot, just up at the uh, whatever the after party was till like 4, and just drove straight there. Met up with Corey Buller and took us there, and I think I almost backfarved it, and I was like, I'm here to rough grind it, and it's too hot, and that's the hardest part about the rail, is if you make it any serious distance, you have to walk back up all those stairs,
Mm-hmm.
and especially in the summer, it was like 100% humidity, just dripping wet, and you can't mess. Like if you miss, you're back at the top, and it's like just you don't the energy just doesn't last.
What was your favorite rough grind you've ever done? Was it that one or something else?
I think that one and the S rail, like going back to like the things that got me excited about skating, like watching uh, Hoax Tour come through and skate the S rail before I even had been to Boulder. I ended up going to school there, but I rough grinded the S rail first try after a Mizu first try, which was like, if you've ever skated the rail, it's next to impossible. Just doing a single trick down it is a fucking pain in the ass. And of course, I've skated a bunch of times by then and was going to school there, and it was just like, holy shit, back to back first tries, and one was a rough grind, and it's like a thick rail, so it's scary on that last curve, like getting over and not dying. And then I think there's a kink trail in Chicago. I forget what university it's at, but hanging out with all those dudes, and I think it's depending on how you count your kinks, a triple kink. Um, but yeah, full just commit, and there's no you know going half ass on that one. So
That's pretty gnarly too on a Kings
yeah.
rail. Wow. And who like that clip at the S rail? It was filmed, right? I remember seeing that. And what video was that in?
I don't even know if it made it to a video. Trying to remember. It may have been in like a Billy Koska film of some sort, maybe, but I've got it on my Facebook. I compiled like 6 or 7 rough grinds.
Okay, that's probably where I saw it done on your
Yeah.
Facebook.
Yeah, one of my like favorites, like most terrifying, was at DU. There's like a university here that has like these super fat square box rails, and rough kind grind a drop rail that was like 25-foot drop, and that was a one-time go, and it's low rail, and same thing. It's just you just hit it and that's it.
I have to see that one. Is that in the same edit?
No, that doesn't exist,
Oh,
and
it doesn't.
I think there was somebody from Daily Bread there shooting stills, and something happened, and it didn't make it anywhere. But I think there was a date on the photo or something. But that was the only coverage of that event, sadly.
And as far as photos go, did you ever have photos in magazines?
Of me, the Daily Bread doing an alley
Mhm.
fish brain on the road trip
Okay,
at the Frisco Park. That's
right.
pretty much, I think, one of the only photos I've had. And it's nice to see magazines actually coming back.
Yeah, it is really cool.
Yeah, it's like for a while there weren't any.
I mean, they're a lot more expensive now.
Oh yeah, but I feel like
It's-
people are understanding that and paying for it, which is cool.
Mhm. Well, when you don't have advertising, you got to
I know all about that.
increase your. Yeah, me too. What was the first video you were in?
uh, Probably Hoax 5, like an actual like real video, or Battle My Crew 2, BG16. So a while ago, doing a Farfignugan.
Which is one of your favorite tricks, next
Yep.
to the rough grind.
That came a little later.
What was your proudest moment in your skating career?
Proudest moment. That is wow. Um, I don't know. I think the Mile High battle after my mom had passed away, and like she was like the rock, of the family and supporting skating, and you can. I mean, she drove all the way out to Lyman from our house to pick up the Hoax 5 dudes when their RV broke down. So
No.
all of a sudden, like my mom drops everything to go pick up, Aaron Feinberg and Josh Clark and Matt Andrews and all these people, and it's like, holy shit, like what's my mom doing? Like fuck yeah, she's a rock star, like
That's
she's a
awesome.
badass, yeah, and like, and of course my dad was there the whole time supporting us, and the two of them, when she passed, it was devastating. She was, it was a week from now, 4 years ago. Um, but Justin Barr actually painted a portrait of my mom, and I dedicated that edit to her, and it was hard, but at the end, seeing how many people that she had touched, and like the family that I had, like that
Hmm.
support was very humbling, and like very proud moment.
No,
It's just like,
that's
holy
great.
shit, like this is amazing, like people care, and and a lot of in aspects of my life you don't have that kind of support, and so that's where it's pretty sweet to have that kind of experience.
Yeah, that's very beautiful. Um, what? When were you in your prime? Your skating prime?
um, that's, I would say, mid 20s, college, like end of college. I guess end of high school, going into college, and that's when everyone and their mom was. It was Hammerville, and I never, I did a couple of bigger tricks, but I was more into just grinding long, big rails, and that's what I love. So, but so when I was the most technical, and could do like, I don't know, the same 15, 20 tricks on every whatever rail you put in front of me, steep down rail, long, whatever. That was
When was the last
uh,
time you learned a new trick?
um not too long ago. I learned a new switch up on the ramp, rough KG to Savannah or Unity. Is it Alley Unity? Um, um, but yeah, the like old Billy Prislin edit, or redo of the kind grind to Unity, and so, or back sav, but rough KG to Savannah. I actually landed it.
Have you
So
ever done a true rough kind grind?
yes, yes, I have on a couple of different rails.
That's a good trick.
It's terrifying.
Is that in the video?
No, that was like little dinky. Where was it? Hinkley was like an old six stair, like way back in the day, and it was terrifying.
Way back in the day, Beloved Harden lived in Fort Collins. Did you ever skate with him back then? Did you ever meet him?
Not really. It's funny because that same Nis I was talking about, where I met Kolash, and later he ended up at my house in Hoax 5. But it was he there? I don't know if he was there for that. But either way, I got a Kryptonics poster signed by Belove, Renee Holgreen, AJ, Brian Smith, Corey, it was, and B. Harden, and I think he's the one on it. I think if I remember correct, doing a front side in his big old, tube socks and his cut, jean shorts. It's pretty sweet.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's
I met
awesome.
B around that time when he moved back to Houston.
Yeah.
He was a cool dude.
Yeah.
The
forefathers.
Yeah, for sure. Now he's into gaming. He's like him and his son are like pro gamers.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty rad.
We live in now.
I know, right? It's like funny because like in X Games they've got like gaming and stuff like that. So and as far as like the skate scene in Denver, I'd mentioned a couple times that there's a lot of skaters, there's a lot of spots. How has the scene changed and evolved since your early days there?
I think it's just gotten bigger in an awesome way. And I think we're lucky because, there are some larger cities, Fort Collins, the Spring, stuff like that, Boulder, that aren't too far away, and they are destination places for education. So you have a bunch of people that are coming and going. And then, I think partially because of the road trip, there's been a bunch of people who've moved here, after experiencing it, like the whole Texas crew, BLC, and, the just amazing talents that are coming from all over that are, keeping the sport alive. And I think back to skate parks, having that many skate parks it's more accessible. And so, even going to Dust, you can see these kids that, they see the difference. They know that guy's been skating for 30 years. That what the hell are those skates? Those are aggressive skates. Those are wizard skates. They get it. And they have means and the access to it. Like you can go to a skate shop and buy stuff. That wasn't a thing when I was a kid, so there were the local 5-6 people, that we skated with all the time. But no internet, no cell phones. So it was super, just like everything, smaller community. And now through, posting on Facebook and showing up to a skate park once a week on Thursdays and having anywhere from 2 people to 30 people show up. And some scenes have never even been close to 30 people, and that's what's awesome. And so it's great. And seeing, it's super beneficial to have, I think the skate park is also a huge, attraction to people moving here, especially after the road trip. And if you're into any sort of outdoor activity, you come from a place where half the year you can't do anything because it's too hot or it's too cold, during the winter. And Denver has something to do all year round. And the one thing we do lack, which has become, it's always like in fluctuation, is indoor skate parks. But there's always some reprieve from the snow in some way, and generally it goes away pretty quick. So a lot of the parks, especially with all the people, tend to make them, shovel them out or whatever. But the way it's going, it's just going to keep expanding and seeing, especially with what Rachel's done with Dust, and they've been super supportive, and she's aggressive skater too. The cross, advertising and support between the aggressive scene, the quad scene is now like, merged into it. And, seeing Blading Cup coming up with their quad series in this, is it May? And it's same thing here. It's great. So hopefully it keeps pushing, and, we'll have 200 people here skating in no time.
And I know it's winter now, but the Thursday night skate park sessions, that's still like a thing that's been happening. It's been going on for a long time, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and similarly to, everything gets passed on and people get busy, and, it's Jeff Gonring's taking it over now, and he's, it's once again, it's not nothing, but somebody's got to do it. It's like make one post a month and then follow up when the weather changes, and that's what, sucks. And you don't have to show up, but at least let people know where to go. And, it's been a while since I've been on a TNR, but I need to get back out there.
So as far as people moving to Denver to skate, you had mentioned Texas skaters. Now there was a period where there was a lot of Texas skaters in Denver. And I know people in Colorado traditionally don't necessarily like people from Texas that much. So how did people react in Denver to their scene being just having this huge influx of skaters from Texas?
I didn't see any, nothing but positivity, I would say. A bunch of younger kids who were stoked, literally to skate, party, and hang out. So, all good things.
Cool. Well, Denver is definitely a melting pot. Is there any other cities who've had a lot of people move there?
Not in that amount, and I think it was more of like crew like almost entire crew move, um, and there's people, yeah, from all over the country that have moved here, but it's just one,
Hmm.
and either through a skate camp or wherever they've met somebody else from Colorado, so they come in already being a part of the scene, or being on the road trip or coming out for a battle, so. And that's what's awesome. Everyone already feels like family. It's not like some invasion of our scene. I think just like anywhere, there are cliques. People hang out with people they like. That's the nature of people. But yeah, when it comes to especially at the battle, it's sweet to see that many people come out and people you don't see every day or you
Hmm.
haven't skated with in 3 months, and they're just shredding. So
Awesome.
just yeah, nothing quite, I think, to the level of uh, amount as Texas.
Yeah, Texas goes big. Everything's bigger in Texas, and from Texas. Now, that's pretty much wraps up most of the questions I had for you. I do want to
Sweet.
end with one question I like to ask people. And what is it about inline skating that's kept you in the sport for such a long time?
I think the community. That's it's like I hate to say family, but it is. And there's ups and downs. There's great times. There's drama, but just like your family, most of the time, at least in my experience, you can get over things, and it's something you can share in common that transcends borders, gender, race, any of that. And so it's like it's a universal, at least leveling ground for people, that skate. And so, just like I'm saying, I could probably go to almost any country in the world and post up on Facebook, "Hey, I'm in town, need a place to stay, want to go skate," and I'd get some sort of response. Literally, almost any country in the world. And I don't know how many other people can say that, from any other, you can't go play baseball and just show up in, Chile and post up, say, "Hey, I'm here, want to play some baseball. I brought my bat." Like that's not a thing as far as I know. And so having that connection, that community, that just transcends space, and it's great. It's amazing.
Yeah, that is one of my favorite things about this sport as well. And I've taken advantage of that a lot, throughout my time in the sport.
I have
Remember,
to.
like in 1999, when I went to Europe for the first time when I filmed for Last Call, I was there for about 6 months, 7 months. Didn't have a lot of money, and I just posted that I was going there on different message boards that they had back then, bulletin board systems,
Yeah,
and I had a place to stay
yeah,
probably every night, but maybe like three,
that's very
in
cool.
different cities around Europe, and like with people's families, and it was really
Yeah, and that
cool.
was 99. Like,
Yeah.
and nowadays you'd have to like fight off places to stay. Which is a good problem to have.
But what I did not realize when I made this trip is that I would be working for Daily Bread in San Diego only a year later.
Yep.
So every single person wanted to come to
Yep.
San Diego and stay at my house. So I had like a hotel for like 10 years in San Diego where people just
Yep.
stayed with me
I mean,
for
that guy taking advantage of the SoCal
a,
crew going
a
to the
long
beach
time.
and
I mean, those people would stay for like months, you know?
why wouldn't you? San Diego's amazing year round.
Yeah. I remember like, especially during the ASR trade show, so many people would stay at my house. I had this little studio apartment in downtown San Diego. It was very small. And I had a bed, and there was like 12 people sleeping there. They would have their legs underneath my bed and just like their torsos out of it. There was somebody sleeping in the bathroom floor, in the bathtub, and the kitchen floor, and everyone was snoring. And I had a stick next to my bed, and I was just whack people with it.
Oh man.
That was
So you,
funny
you paid your
times.
dues with the snoring.
Yeah, so that's back before my snoring. So you
Yeah.
know. Now, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I don't know if there's any
Yeah.
topics like we didn't cover that you wanted to get into.
No, I mean it was great to be brought on. It's cool to still be doing something, and seeing people still doing it. It's amazing. Once again, I I don't skate like I used to, but when I do, I like to have fun, and that's about it. And it's cool to see how everything, how many people are doing what you're doing right now in this scene, which is awesome.
Yeah,
Way
well, I
more
appreciate it.
accessible. It's great.
It was really nice to have you on here. It was really good hearing about the history of the road trip, the Mile High Battle, your personal history, and with your brother. Like, fills a lot of gaps for a lot of people who know you and might not know that history. So I
Yeah,
really
I got a twin
appreciate you
brother,
coming
and
on.
I'm not the naked one.
Yeah, perfect. Everyone should know that now,
Yeah.
and hopefully that clears it up.
Yeah,
So yeah, anyway, really appreciate you coming on. It was great talking to you. It's been too long. I really look forward to seeing you again in person
definitely.
in Denver sometime. Maybe you can come out to Vermont for our
Yeah,
Vermont trip sometime,
I'd love to.
or to snowboard or whatever, anytime. So
Definitely
anyway,
down with all that.
thank
Good
you
seeing
so
you.
much. And I look forward to seeing you in the future.
Yes, sir. Have a good night.
That's a wrap for episode 19 of the Then and Now Blading podcast with Luke Bender. Like I said at the beginning of the interview, Luke is a legend in the sport. He's done so much for the Denver scene and skating in general. He's brought together so many people from around the country with the Colorado road trip. It's just a really significant and important event in the sport, and you should definitely make it out to that event if you haven't already. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you do, make sure to hit the like button. This is going to be the second to last pre-recorded interview I'm doing. The next one is with Jeremy Baytall. That'll be episode 20. And starting with episode 21, all of the interviews will be live. So to catch those live, make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon to be notified anytime I'm going live or upload a new video. Make sure to follow me on social media. I have links to my Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram in the description below. If you enjoy this podcast and all the shows I'm doing on the Then and Now Blading YouTube channel, consider becoming a Patreon supporter. Patreon members get exclusive content not available on this channel and also get entered into monthly giveaway drawings from merch from the Then and Now Blading store and sometimes some things from my personal collection. Thanks again for joining me. I look forward to seeing you all at episode 20 with Jeremy Baytall. Until then, take care.